I'm gonna keep the intro brief. You read the title, you know what you came for. Color theory. How to color theory. This video is divided into 4 chapters. Timestamps in the description if you want to skip around, and if you want to see more tutorials like this, subscribe. I do a lot of gaming and art content, so if you're into that, yeah. Anyways, enjoy the video. Bye! Now, before you hop over to the unforsaken land, which we call color theory, there's just a few terms you need to get familiar with. Hue. What is a hue? A hue is essentially a color's purest form. What is your hue? It's blue, it's red, it's green, it's purple. A hue is pretty much your base color, the main color you're using. On ibis paint, the hue is represented as this wheel surrounding this little section here. As we can see here, the hue is now red. And if we shift this cursor here, we've now landed on a purple hue. Saturation. Saturation is pretty much how intense a color is. As you can see here, this bright red is really high in saturation, but if we were to tone it down just a tad bit, you end up with a light grayish red, which is lower in saturation. And that's what essentially saturation is. How powerful, how vibrant a color can be. Value. Value is how dark a color can be. The higher the value, the darker a color. This deep red is high in value, and this light red, a low value. We can know the value of a color by just quickly putting on a grayscale filter to just see. See this silly little cube? Very cute, very squishy, very three-dimensional. As you can see here, these different varieties of values help to further highlight the different planes of the cube. Without these differentiating values, this cube becomes flat and it loses its three-dimensionality. Like the cube, we people have different planes on our face, just a lot more. And understanding how to place these values will help you substantially when you're trying to render. So, we've now gone through the basic vocabulary here, and now we're ready to talk about colors. Well, colors can depict many sorts of scenes and emotions. Depending on what vibe you're going for, your choice of colors are gonna vary. Bright pinks and blue can give your art a really dreamy feel. Dark and muddy colors could give you a depressing or eerie feel. Take the movie Coraline, for example. In the first few minutes of the movie, we are introduced to the gray, mundane, boring life of Coraline. The house is old and gray, creepy neighbors, and the scene is further set with depicting dull and muted colors with a lot of grays and browns. In stark contrast to when she finds the other world, the colors are vibrant and saturated with bright pinks, deep reds, and vivid purples. This creates a sense of wonder and excitement, making the world seem much more appealing and dreamlike. And this is the potency of colors. Knowing how to pick and choose the right colors for your artwork is powerful. It's like giving a gun to a baby. Okay, that's a bad interpretation, but you know what I mean. Color wheels. Color. Yes. Now it's time to start picking colors, but how do you do that? Well, there are a few principles I like to stick to. The color wheel is composed of cool and warm colors. Cool colors are colors with a blue tint, and warm colors, well, they have a red tint. Before I start coloring, I like to decide whether I want my overall drawing to be cool or warm-toned. This involves picking colors that are adjacent to one another on the color wheel. Example, red, orange, and yellow. This is one of the easiest ways to synchronize colors together, so mostly picking tones that are similar to one another. Honestly, one of my favorites. This process involves taking colors which are opposite from the color wheel. Example like purple and yellow, blue, orange, red, green. These complementary colors, well, complement one another. A variation to this core fundamental is called split complementary, which is essentially a combination of the two core principles above. Example, you take a blue and yellow, but not only do you take the yellow, you also pick out its adjacent colors like red and orange. Now, how can you actually apply these principles? Well, let's take a look at examples. Most of the time, if not always, complementary colors are used to highlight the main subject. Look at this piece from Hanako-kun. At first glance, your eyes are probably drawn to Amane and Yashiro in the painting. The overall composition utilizes cool tones such as purples and pinks, and such as a warm, light yellow to highlight the main focal point. You can also notice that they use cool purples, pinks, and blue here, and they minimize the usage of yellow, but in a clever way. They take the stark contrast between the cool tones and the warm yellow to guide our eyes to the subject. And again, you can observe the same thing over here. The overall artwork uses warm tones like a light yellow and orange, and it highlights the characters using a nice teal. And you can see a similar pattern over here, and here, and here, and pretty much almost all their artworks. Now take a look at this drawing I made a while back. Very cool, very normal. Huh, I guess not. Color context. Ever wonder why sometimes you pick colors from your references and you're like, ooh, that's not right. Why are the colors different? Oh, you poor naive child. Do I have news to tell you? Color is relative to its surroundings. These gray squares seem to appear different in context to different contrasting backgrounds, but in reality, they're the same. Yes, they're the same. Light colors tend to look a lot brighter in the contrast of darker backgrounds, and dark colors? They look a lot darker compared to lighter colors. Observe! As you can see here, the color I'm using looks to be light pink, but if we were to take away the dark backdrop, understanding how these colors interact with one another will take you another step further. So yeah, now you have all the information you need. And so now it's time to go to war. Now what I want you to do is pause this video and boot up your art programs, whatever you have. And I want you to follow through with me, with my general coloring process. No escaping responsibilities. You're gonna do this with me. Yes, you are. Obviously, before we do anything, we need our beloved line art sketch layer. Be free to trace this onto your canvas, but do credit me on Instagram, aka.glassy, and if you want, you can follow me there and put it under this hashtag on screen. Would love to see what you all come up with. Now that we've established our sketch layer, we want to decide our color palette. Since it's Miku, we're obviously going with a blue tint all over our base colors, and so yeah. After setting your base colors, you now need to start differentiating the values of the subject, meaning it's time to decide where to pick our shadows. Think back to the cube. Right now, colors are looking flat, so we want to establish some darker areas and define our subject. So first, we need to figure out where a light source will be coming from. For my case, the light will be coming from the top left. And I'm using a nice purple as a shadow instead of a gray to make it look more colorful. And then further defining the shadows with even darker values and midtones, allowing our drawing to look more dynamic and colorful. For a better in-depth tutorial for rendering and all of this kind of stuff, you can watch this video. I cover everything you need to know about rendering, shading, and lighting over there. So now we're left with the question, how can we practice all of this? The easiest way is to do art studies. Take some references and try to replicate the colors over onto your canvas. Take things apart and try to pick out colors without the eyedropper tool. This will help train your eye and build your intuition for colors.